On Wednesday, the Obama administration announced that it would ban the use of the words Islam and Jihad from national security documents, signaling a major policy shift in the national security strategy, which currently states, quote, "The struggle against militant Islamic radicalism is the great ideological conflict of the early years of the 21st century," unquote. The frustrating attitude of our government towards terrorism leaves many wondering if our obsession with political correctness is driving the censorship and ultimately undermining national security. While word has circulated for some time about Obama's potential ban of offending words, a closer look at the composition of our national security documents suggests that this has been willful blindness on the part of the defense and intelligence communities for quite some time. So, has America fallen prey to the rules of political correctness, or is this announcement just the acknowledgement of a policy of censorship that's already in place? To get a proper perspective on how deeply entrenched the values of political correctness are in the federal government, I want to show you some national security documents, starting with the 9/11 Commission report, which was released in 2004. Now remember, this was a bipartisan effort. The commission interviewed over 1,000 people and reviewed millions of pages of documents to provide a complete and thorough account of the September 11th attacks and presented recommendations designed to guard against future attacks. Let's take a closer look at the phraseology they used. Now, the term violent extremism was mentioned 3 times. The word enemy was mentioned 39 times. Jihad was mentioned 126 times, Muslim 145 times, Islam 322 times, Al-Qaeda 36 times, and Sharia was mentioned 2 times. From this report, we have a basic understanding of the nature of our enemy. It is specifically defined not just as some vague generic evil, but as, quote, "The catastrophic threat at this moment in history is more specific. It is the threat posed by Islamist terrorism, especially the Al-Qaeda network, its affiliates, and its ideology," unquote. Now, the 9/11 Commission report extensively laid the foundations for the understanding of the Islamist threat and the tactics and weapons groups like Al-Qaeda were capable of using against Americans. But that has all changed in the years since that barbaric attack on our soil. Now that we have a baseline for comparison, let's take a look at the FBI's Counterterrorism Analytical Lexicon, dated October 2008, sort of a dictionary, if you will, used by our intelligence officers to analyze information in order to combat terrorist efforts. Are you ready? Can you take a guess at how many times the word Islam, Muslim, or Jihad were used? None. Not one single mention. How are we supposed to combat the Islamist terrorist threat if we don't even mention them by name? Well, if you think that's shocking, let's take a look at the 2009 National Intelligence Strategy Report. Not a single mention of Al-Qaeda, Islam, Muslims, or Jihad. In fact, the report doesn't even mention the word enemy. Instead, it refers to the less offensive phrase, violent extremist. It does that 29 times. How do we go from hundreds of references to Islam to 0? Now, this has to be something far beyond any politically correct behavior, and the administration's announcement shows us there is a willful blindness and a policy of censorship already engraved into our intelligence community and now our military and government. We can even see the same display in the findings of the terrorist attack at Fort Hood. Now, if you remember, Major Nidal Hassan made no secret of his radical Islamic faith. He allegedly proselytized to his fellow service members and often spoke out against the wars the United States is fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. He even shouted Allahu Akbar during his deadly shooting rampage and was caught on surveillance cameras dressed in traditional Arab garb hours before the attack. So, what did the findings reveal? Well, the report released by the Department of Defense in January doesn't even mention the term violent extremism. In fact, it doesn't mention Islam, Muslim, Jihad, or even Hassan's name. By looking at all these examples, it looks as if the Islamic extremist-driven violence is not only being overlooked, but purposely ignored and censored by our government. Now, why has President Obama allowed this policy of strategic censorship to occur? Are the glaring omissions of the jihadist threat just PC naivete on the part of the federal government, or does it demonstrate a deeper problem that we are unwilling to confront the real enemy of radical Islam? Come back next week as we take a deeper look at the censoring of the Islamicist threat. I'm Bill Whittle for BJTV. Thanks for watching.